Welcome back to the I Am More Than podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Wessel. I'm a former Miss Arizona USA professional model and founder of More Than Inc. This week, I had the honor of having a good friend on the podcast. You may know her from The Bachelor, but we go way back to our days at competing at Miss USA. This episode is a jam-packed one. We're talking about how she recovered from the coronavirus, to getting out of toxic relationships, and how she's become a champion for body positivity. I want to give you listeners a heads up that we will be discussing some sensitive topics that could be a trigger for some. From confronting an eating disorder to battling depression, I have no doubt she'll make you laugh and cry. Trust me, she holds nothing back. She's a public figure, a Miss Massachusetts USA, a girlfriend, a real estate agent, a sister, a friend, and an influencer to over 140,000 people. Please welcome the one and only Caroline Lenny. I am so excited to have one of my good girlfriends, Caroline Lenny, on the podcast today. What's up, Caroline?
Hi, I'm so pumped to be here. I'm so proud of you for making this happen. This is like such a cool avenue for you. And I'm really flattered to be here.
Oh my God, I love you so much. And we've been friends now. I was thinking about it today. We met at Miss USA in 2014. Yeah. So it's been some time.
It's literally, 6 years?
Time is flying.
No, it's actually been it was end of May 6 years ago.
Wow. Well, I do have to say, you're one of the best things that came out of Miss USA, so I'll take it.
Oh, you're so sweet. Not true, but I will, that's the best part about Miss USA is all the girlfriends that come out of it, so.
Totally.
We're very lucky.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. Well, I feel like you and I have so much to dive into because I know a little bit of your background. I know you personally, obviously. But before we dive into everything, I first want to ask how you're feeling because I know you were pretty candid with your audience about the fact that you were sick. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that was like for you?
Yeah, I'm a pretty candid person. There's pretty much nothing that I won't talk about because I'm a huge believer that we all go through things to, I don't know, you go through it. So, and then if you talk about it, then not only are you not alone, but someone else is going through it won't feel so alone either. So I really am very much quite an open book, but yeah, so I had coronavirus, which is so insane because it's this mass pandemic, obviously. And it's been weird. It was really weird at first because I wasn't that sick. I have had asthma my whole life. I've had pneumonia, whooping cough, just all of it. I've been in and out of the hospital many times in my life with, respiratory issues. And this, shockingly, I hate to say it because I don't want people to not take it seriously, but also it was probably the least scary respiratory issue that I've ever had.
Wow.
And it's weird and it's awful to, I don't want to downplay this because I know people who, my best friend's grandmother died from coronavirus.
That's crazy because I do think that from what we've heard, if you have pre-existing conditions, obviously it can be a lot worse for you or if you are older, but it's interesting to me that you didn't feel that sick.
Right. More than anything though was the mental aspect of all of it. Because I was in isolation, like my mom, I was at her house when all this happened and I was in the master bedroom, which had a bathroom. So I didn't need to leave the room for anything and nor was I allowed to. And even my doctor's appointments were over some kind of online portal thing. And I talked to my doctor via FaceTime, but I did not see or touch or physically be around another human for 4.5 weeks. And that's hard.
Wow.
And it's really hard, especially because everything is revolving around this, illness or whatever, this virus. And you forget who you are outside of it. And it's been very nice I'm in North Carolina with my boyfriend. I drove down to see him and to be here for a couple of weeks. And it's just nice to kind of forget about germs for a second and just hug someone. My body's very weak. My lungs are, when I first went for a walk around the block, there's a little hill that I tried to go up and I made it up probably 30 feet up the hill. And I was no, that's
wow.
not today.
Wow.
Not going to happen for me. But yeah, but otherwise, I feel okay. I feel very blessed. And I know that that's not the case for everybody, but obviously people still need to be safe, but also everyone is so in panic mode, and just know like it's not always a death sentence, so.
Well, I do want to dive into the mental aspect too, because I know that you and I both, we've talked about mental health many, many times. And as two people that have struggled with anxiety and depression, I wonder what it was like when you were in isolation and then coming out. Do you feel like that isolation took a toll on you that you're still recovering from, or not so much?
I, Truthfully, I would not have been able to get through any of it if it wasn't for my boyfriend. And so John and I actually like took a little break for a minute just because things got really like hectic and crazy, and we were still talking like every other day, which makes no sense. It's just two dramatic people, obviously. We broke up, but then we got back together in isolation, and we had a lot of time to like sit and think and kind of talk things out and whatnot. But if I hadn't had him, like I would have probably totally lost my mind. But like we healed our relationship, we talked, and I think that's the blessing about everything that's going on is like everything is a little more slowed down, and people are really kind of focusing on the depth of relationships. We're not all so busy, and I have all these things to do and da da da. It's just like you kind of have that moment to have some patience and nurture things the way like we used to. Like I don't know, it's like an idea from like the 90s of when like life was slower and we had landlines and we just talked on the phone and whatever. But
really interesting point. I mean, you're right. It's really time you need to pour into building your relationships right now, because if our relationships aren't strong, we really have nothing else to distract us.
Oh, absolutely. But so he and I would FaceTime all day, and like we would like have FaceTime up while we went to bed at night. Like even like he's snoring next to me, and like eventually like we'd like the call would fail or something, but just having him, like hearing him snoring next to me, and like the effort that he put in to our relationship, and just to like being with me, like I don't know, it was really special. Like it was really like he like really showed up.
That's
And
really
he
awesome.
always kind of does. Like, and it's funny because like the 5-second breakup that we had was kind of me like in my like issues from the past, where like I was afraid to like let anybody in, and I kind of pushed him away a bit. But yeah, he's really like wonderful. Like he has his problems too, and he's totally a pain in the ass, but he just he keeps showing up, and he takes really good care of me, and I'm very lucky to have him.
And you deserve that. And I really want to dive into relationships too, because I know you and I have had some pretty powerful conversations about just getting out of toxic relationships.
Oh, totally.
I think the more you grow, the more you kind of know your own worth, you know what your standards are. And I know you had some interesting relationships prior to when you decided to go on The Bachelor. What advice would you give now, knowing that you're in a healthy relationship now, back to younger Caroline about getting out of those relationships?
It's so hard to even know what to say. Like, it's just run, bitch, run. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's so much there, but I feel like I'm a huge believer in like, and you have to go through those things so you can like learn and grow and whatever. But truthfully, like, it took me a long time to really get over those. And like, even you're like, oh, like the last guy that I was with before John was like totally a body shamer, and which, since become like, hey, like embrace the curves, like power to the curves, all that. But
Yeah.
it wasn't that easy, especially like when I was on The Bachelor, and everyone was, not everyone, but like a lot of people were like body shaming me. And like I had all these like internet Instagram trolls talking about how I was the fat girl. And I was like,
Oh my
like, and that's the thing that sucks is like, when you have all those people, and after doing pageants and modeling, and back, when we first started this industry, when we first started in this industry, our bodies were totally not accepted. And I think that it's really cool the work that you're doing, and so many other women. They're just they're changing the game, and I think that that's so important, because I, grew up a young girl in the modeling industry thinking like, oh, like I'm pretty and I'm thin and whatever, and you just get totally rejected over being curvy, and like they have to be this, there's only one type of body that's accepted, which when you look around the streets, like there's so many different shapes and sizes. And I think it's hard for other women who don't feel represented. You know what I mean? So I think it's
Totally.
really cool to, kind of be a little bit of a trailblazer. And I think that, the work that you're doing is so fantastic. And the whole idea behind this podcast and all of that shit, it's great.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I think I admire you so much because you put yourself on two very public platforms that didn't invite people to criticize your body, but knowing our society the way that they are, that's the only thing people focus on for whatever reason. And I want to know, because we both went through Miss USA together, obviously. And then afterwards, I think we both went through the same psychological battle of being like, okay, I've seen myself on stage at this size. And now that I'm in the real world and like not pushing my body to that extreme, how do I learn to love the skin that I'm in without comparing myself to the other version?
Right. It's not an easy feat. Like,
No, not at all. And what was that process like for you after Miss USA? Like, did you have to implement certain things into your life and into your routine to kind of come to acceptance with yourself once again?
I think I'm still getting there, truthfully. Um, it's not something like you can just be like, oh, okay, like cool, like let's just all done.
Yep,
It's not that
totally.
simple. And especially the one thing that's been always kind of challenging for me is that like even in my family, like it's my mom, my sister, and my brother and me. And like my mom and my sister like are very fit and they love working out and they just like love to work out. And my sister, she's like, this little petite thing. And my mom, she won't admit it, but like my mom definitely has some kind of eating disorder. It's like obsessed with being thin and like loves to eat berries for her meals. And I'm like, I like cheeseburgers. So
Yep, I'm with you.
um,
So,
that's hard. And so being around that was always really challenging because like my mom was a bit of a stage mom when I was at Miss USA and I did have an eating disorder around that time. And it's funny because like I was throwing up all the time, but
wow.
I was like still a bigger girl. So no one was like, oh my God, like she's got to be sick. Like like no one knew that because I still kind of hid it. But I mean, I threw up at Miss USA. Like, remember that like amazing dinner we went to? It was like downtown, not New Orleans. Where were we? Baton Rouge. It was some
Yeah.
show night, and there was like this amazing bread pudding, and I ate two of them, and I went back and threw up in the room. Like,
Oh, you poor thing.
and it's so sad now because it's like, oh, like I look back at like my younger self, and I'm like, baby girl, like you did not have to do that, like And it's just this thing where you get so obsessed with your weight, and it's like so much of your value gets placed in what your body looks like. And it's hard to kind of rewire that. But it's something like seeing someone like Ashley Graham, you know what I mean? And it's like seeing someone who like is beautiful and curvy and like funny. And it's like, it's taken me so long to realize that like I have so much more value than simply my size. And truthfully, like my body is like the least of the things that I bring to the table. And
Totally.
so I think so many women kind of forget that because we get so consumed by looking pretty, and it's just like, hey, here's a secret. Happy girls are the prettiest. Like,
Amen to that.
yeah. And so
And life is way too short to be obsessing constantly over what your body looks like. But I think that's a realization that most women will never get to. Did you struggle with body image prior to being on that national stage? And what was it like afterwards?
well, so prior to winning Miss Massachusetts, I had like lost like 50 pounds or so that year. Like I had
Wow.
been on I'm a classic yo-yo girl. But I had been heavier and I had been in a bad relationship and the guy, we're eating DiGiorno pizza every day, like just really unhealthy. And
Yeah.
so that was an unhealthy extreme. And then we broke up and I was just like, got super fit and was like, fuck it. I'm going to go for Miss Mass. And so it was such a nice kind of avenue to kind of focus on. However, I really got unhealthy with it. And, I was making myself throw up.
Wow. Did
And
you have any eating disorders prior to that, or is that when it kind of started?
I wouldn't say that it necessarily started because of like pageants and stuff. I just think I was so, and the thing that's wild is like, I only just recently realized that like years later that I actually had an eating disorder, because it was like, no, like I was in control. Like I didn't throw up every time. I only threw up sometimes, like when I would eat too much. That's like,
Wow.
okay, that's still an eating disorder. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
what
but
I
at the
mean,
time, you don't think so. You always think that you have control and you can stop if you want to stop. Am
right.
I
And I was
right?
like, I'm totally in control. Like, and I'll do what I want, but it's like, but like, are you though? Like, well, you shouldn't be throwing up. Like, if you're really in control, just don't fucking eat that. Like,
Yeah.
like,
Do you think that that started because of the pressures of that you were under and you thought that that's the one thing you could control outside of everything else, or why do you think it started?
um, I think so much of it is that, I mean, maybe, I don't know if it's the pressure or whatever it is, but um, I just always felt kind of less than. And so I
Wow.
don't know exactly like what triggered it all. I'm sure I could probably use some therapy or something on it, but it was definitely like always like kind of a bumpy road for me. But you're kind of like looked over when you're like a little like average and overweight and like whatever. And then all of a sudden I got skinny and I'm, doing the pageant stuff and it's like all this like rewarding, you know, all this like these rewarding experiences are coming from it, this positive attention. And it's like, now all of a sudden I'm worthy.
Wow.
And then I think like after Miss USA, when I didn't even place, it was hard because like I, thought I would have placed. I placed when I was at teen. I mean, I made top 15 at Teen USA. So I just kind of thought I would make it as well at Miss. But I'd been like really sick that week. I had a fever. Like I really like wasn't on my A game. I wasn't super confident. So like, and I just think when it all ended, I was like, cool. Like I did all of that and it wasn't enough. Like, so
Wow.
then I just was like, fuck it. I don't care anymore. Like,
Which I think is a normal response. I mean, you prepare for this for a really long time. And when you're on a national stage like that, not only are you picking yourself apart, but for some reason, other people feel entitled that they then get to pick you apart, whether they're in your position or not. And I think once you leave the excitement of Miss USA, I felt like everything that like was built up to that point, and afterwards it was kind of like, okay, yeah, we don't need you guys anymore. Like you're whatever. We need the next year, next crown, next Miss USA. Like
right.
it didn't have that value or that validation that I think we were all thinking we were going to get from that title. And I think it was very eye-opening to then leave an experience like that and be like, okay, I need to learn how to like get acceptance in myself and like figure out how to pick up the pieces. Did you kind of
Oh, yeah.
feel that same way?
Oh, totally. And the thing was like, it's exciting to have this goal to work towards. You know what I mean? Like some people do like pageants, some people like do it for their wedding, some people will do like a bodybuilding show and they have this date that they're like, okay, we're like, 3 months out, we're 2 months out, we're like, you got this many days. And the problem with that mindset in being healthy, like in like getting fit, is that it's not really a healthy, like sustainable lifestyle and mindset. So
Yeah.
that's my issue with training for like one specific date, and I'm still working on this now. But having it be more like a lifestyle that you get into for like taking care of yourself every day and just to like feel good in your body versus like I have to like do all these extreme diets and workouts for this one thing, and then when that's over you kind of get so burnt out from it and like you're like, now I don't have anything to work towards. It just kind of, I don't know, does that make any sense, like the
No,
whole
it totally does. It totally does. And I think when you put in your mind that you have like an end date, you can pretty
yeah,
much do anything in life if you think it's only going to last for a month, 2 months, whatever it is that you're working towards. And then after you can do whatever the hell you want. I think it takes a lot more structure and restraint to be able to say, like, I want to live for me. I want to be healthy for me, not because I'm competing for something, not because I think it's going to like boost up my worthiness solely because I need to work on myself. That
right.
takes a lot of strength.
So it wasn't until I dated this guy after Miss USA, and his lifestyle was super fun, super exciting. And then like I thought he was the one. And then when we broke up, like he was a really good kind of distraction after Miss USA. Like I literally met him like 3 weeks before I gave up my title.
Oh,
And
wow.
he was like a really good distraction to like the void that I was feeling in myself for my own personal goals. And so it was really exciting just to kind of like throw myself into his life and his lifestyle. And then when we broke up, like I literally was like, who am I? Like, what do I have? Like, I have nothing. I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I don't know anything. Like, and I had just gotten into real estate. Like, had just realized that I loved doing house stuff. But again, like for me, it was this whole thing. Like I was Miss Massachusetts. I'm supposed to go on and be like some kind of news anchor or TV actress or something like big, big, big. And then I'm like, I don't actually love that stuff. And like, you know what I
Yeah,
love? Like, and that lights me up is like decorating, like, and
that's
selling
amazing.
like real estate and like doing house stuff like that. Like for me, like I didn't like give myself permission to like love that stuff
Yeah.
because I thought I had to like do this big, extravagant, like famous career. But
Wow.
so
That's
that was a huge piece
powerful.
of it. And then the other piece was for me when him and I had broken up, um, I got into Soul Cycle and I would cry pretty much if not every other, if not every class. Like, and I felt
Wow.
one
That was
instructor,
like your release.
yeah, but she would say all the right things. Shout out to my girl Leah Malley. She was my therapist, and she would be like, you'd climb the hill, and it was this whole thing. It was like, all right, like your fat ass is tired, and you're like, I'm not going to climb this hill. And she's like, what's at the top of this hill? And she talks you through this whole thing. She's like, what's at the top of the hill? Why are we riding? Like, you don't give up. If you give up, you don't get to have that thing at the top. And it's like, keep going. And then like you fight for it. And then all of a sudden, like you get to the top and you like get to release like all the resistance in your bike. And like, you just kind of cry because you're like, I did it. And like, you
Yeah.
have this, the breakup going through your head and all this stuff. But it was just such a cool thing for me that I did for myself. And I didn't do it to be skinny. And I didn't do it, to be the best and to be the fastest. And I didn't do it to lose weight and for a pageant or for a guy. Like I did it for me.
Wow.
And it was so cool. And I have this like serious love affair with spin class now. And like I even now, like if there's a spin class where they have like you turn on your numbers and like you track like how fast you go. And I'm like, dude, that is not why I'm here. Like I'm not here to like reach my personal best. Like I'm not here for that. Like I'm here for my head. And like that's like, I think what some people like really overlook when they work out is that like they're there for like their summer bod. And it's like, bitch, go there to feel good. Go there to cry. Go there
Amen.
to woo. I am a wooer. I woo so much. If I feel a jam, I'm in that class and I am wooing like a baby in the back. Like I like love it. But I think like that's so important for people to like find a class that like lights them up or some kind of sweat that makes them feel alive. Cause usually
Yeah.
like, especially like, with what we had gone through, I feel like working out was almost like a punishment for eating. And like that, um, you know what I mean? Like that's not what it's
That's
supposed to be about.
dangerous.
It
Yeah.
should be the thing where we like honor our body for doing so much for us and for carrying us around this little crazy life that we're living. And it's like, why are we just always punishing ourselves? And like, why? Because we have a little like pooch.
I think it's really powerful that you've taken what you've learned with that, and whether you even realize it or not, you've been very outspoken on your Instagram, even about what you're going through when it comes to your own acceptance, that I think allows other people to learn how to accept themselves because they're realizing the people they look up to aren't perfect. So I think you've done a really good job of that.
And it's cool because like I see people like you and you're doing the same thing. And it's like where we just kind of stop like editing our photos and we start like being like, hey, like that's a little chub right there. And that's okay. Like
Yeah.
and I think like in being honest with like, my followers and whatever, it not only do they need to hear it, but I need to be honest and to put it out there.
Yeah.
And it's been so powerful for me to like have these messages come in where women are like, oh my gosh, thank you. I needed this. Like I've, just had a baby and I was like, skipping meals. And I'm like, you just created a human being from scratch.
Yeah.
Like, like you be
You
kind to
should
your
not be
body. Like,
punishing
it's okay.
yourself.
Even if you don't have a baby, like maybe, like maybe you're just tired. Maybe you hate your job. Like maybe like, you're emotionally like having a relationship with food for whatever reason. It's like, I mean, get to the bottom of that and see and find a healthy outlet. But like also like it's okay to be human. Like, it's okay to like, don't like hide your body or like not like put on a swimsuit or go out to the beach because you're like ashamed of some chub. So it's like, we all have that. And I think it's really time that we just, if we all just embraced it, that would be the new normal.
Yep.
You know?
Amen.
Like if we
Amen.
all were like, oh, hey, like that's my cellulite. Like,
Like
you know how
all
like
good.
stretch marks have become like hot. Like people are putting glitter on their stretch marks. And like there's that one song where they talk about like stretch marks or something. And now I like love my stretch marks where I used to hate them and be ashamed of them. It's like if we
Wow.
all just like were like shifted our narrative, it would just be normal and we'd all be beautiful, great goddesses that they make statues of. Like, cause that's like what, you know, our bodies look like and that's okay.
Yeah.
So it was hard to have like, I mean, oh my God. So Jordan, there was like this one person who was like constantly harassing me and they like were like, of course you had to go to Massachusetts to win that pageant. You're like, because you couldn't win any other like real state.
Oh my God.
No, I'm born and raised there, bitch. But it was like they were creating these like Instagram like troll accounts. It was like Caroline Lenny, Miss Bacon, Miss
What?
Thunderfries, like Miss Piggy, like Massachusetts, and like they were I couldn't block the accounts fast enough. They would have a new account like 2 minutes later, and it was just like saying things like just gross, disgusting things like I don't know, it was awful.
Wow.
Like, it was
And
really, really nasty. And then I like showed the guy I was dating at the time. I was like, "Oh my gosh, like look at like what they're," and he was like, "Well, instead of sitting here crying about it, why don't you just go to the gym?"
oh
And I
my
was
God.
like, I don't know, maybe just be like, "Babe, you're beautiful." Like I hate to be like
Yeah.
I'm fishing for a compliment, but like, you know what? I could kind of use one right now.
Wow. And this was after Miss USA, after The Bachelor.
Right. And yeah,
Wow.
so he didn't last much longer. And I should have
Good.
broken him 100 times on the spot. But I think like you kind of your worth is like so low at that point, and then I don't know what was wrong with me and why I should have broken up with that guy like months before. And I finally like we had like a you know, The Bachelor kept bringing us back for Becca Kufrin's season. And so like I went there and like the Bachelor producers are like therapists and they're very good at their job at being little mini therapists because it is how they are able to manipulate so many people
Wow.
to
That's
to do
interesting.
the things that they do. Um, but however, that being said, there are some of them that are fantastic people that I just like love and adore. And I remember I went to LA for one episode we were filming for Becca's Bachelorette season. And I finally just had to like tell someone what was actually going on. And so I like went to one of my favorite producers and I was like, Todd, like I'm in a bad relationship. And he looked at me and he was like, Lunny, oh, it would be stupid if it wasn't so sad or something. It'd be like, if it wasn't so sad, it would be like, it would be stupid
Oh
or
my
something like
God.
that. I forget the exact word, but the half of it was, it was so sad that I was like this powerful woman who was like letting this man speak to me the way he was speaking to me. Like, like Jordan, I was sitting on the beach with this guy's family. You know, no one looks good sitting in a beach chair, okay? Like, no
No,
one.
no one. No one.
Especially if you have bad posture, it's just not a good look. So I'm sitting there and I'm like falling in love with this guy's family. Like, I loved his family. Like, they were amazing people. They were my kind of people. And I was like, this is a family like that I could see myself a part of. And I'm sitting there and he took a picture of my fat rolls and just texted it to me. He didn't say anything and just texted it to me and like zoomed in on my fat rolls. And I opened my phone and I'm like, oh my God, I love this nice family. Grab my phone, look down at it. And it's just a picture of my fat rolls.
Oh my God.
And I just am like, what the fuck? And like, he just starts laughing. And so like, he like
So
makes
he was very
some
emotionally abusive.
what?
He was very emotionally abusive,
Oh,
it
a
sounds
thousand
like.
percent. But like, I should have got up and left right then and there. But like, I think you're so in the moment, kind of taken back, like that's even happening. Like, and you're like, oh, it's just a joke. Like,
Yeah,
like,
not.
I'm sorry, where's the humor in that joke? Like, do you know
Wow.
what I mean?
And I think the crazy part is that after knowing you for all of these, like the Caroline that I know is like, call shit how it is. You don't take anything from anybody. You're very powerful. You speak your mind. And I think sometimes when we're blinded by love or what we think is love at the time, we can compromise bits and pieces of us thinking that just because this person loves me, they could never be meaning to hurt me. When in the reality of it, that's how a lot of toxic and emotionally abusive relationships happen. And women stay in it because they're blinded by this idea of love. And it's crazy to me that not that we can even judge a book by its cover, but it's somebody as strong-willed as you would be willing to stand by that. And what would you now say to yourself at that time, now knowing what you know and now knowing your standards and being in a healthy relationship? What would you try and say to her to reason with her a little bit?
Girl, pack your bags, sneak out the back, just go. Like, it doesn't need to block his number, just like disappear into the night.
Wow.
But the thing is like, and it's funny because I know I'm a very strong, like outspoken, no shit tolerating kind of woman. And it's weird. That's the one place for me that I think I am like so desperate for love. Do you know what I mean? And it's like goes back to my daddy issues. And like for me, it's like this thing where I just want to be like loved and accepted. And for me, like the only thing that I ever really like, I don't ever want to be like, I don't need to be CEO of some company. Like I'm not like some person who's totally driven to like run the world. Like I want to have a family. Like I want to, have that and be loved and, have my person and whatever, and then kind of conquer their world together. And so
Totally.
for me, I think like I was so lenient with some shit because I was just so, desperate for love. And it's like so sad that like that's like what I allowed myself to be put through. I then learned, I was like, yo, it is so much better to be alone. And I think from there on out, like I tried to date people, but like I just had built such a wall that like I could not let anyone in.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what happened with me and John, where I was acting a specific way, like where like I just acted, like with this wall up, and like I didn't really fully let him in, and like, made it just seem like I just didn't kind of care. And because I had been so burnt that I was like, I just can't trust myself and my own judgment
Yeah.
to choose a healthy partner.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot, like, through this relationship. But the thing is like John worships me and treats me like a queen and makes sure I'm always fed and always curvy.
Good.
Like,
Love.
and so he just makes me feel so beautiful, but also he's like, all right, let's go for our runs. And like, we're doing the stairs at his building right now. And so it's cool because it's like, my body is loved and celebrated, but also like he's pushing me to be a healthier, better version of myself too. So
And I never think there's anything wrong with wanting to be the best version of yourself as long as it's done in a very loving and respectful way, which I'm really glad that you're with somebody that knows that there's a difference. And they need to be sensitive to that too. I think every woman to a degree struggles with body image and confidence issues. And it's very difficult to let your partner in on that because you don't want them to see that side. That I applaud you for not only letting him see that side, but also taking what you're learning in that relationship and sharing it with the hundreds of thousands of people that follow you and are invested in you. Like you have a lot of people that care very much about your relationship, about your every move. And I'm sure that has to be weird, right?
it definitely was weird for a minute, especially like after the show when there were the trolls and things like that, because it felt like, there were people watching, but they weren't like rooting for me.
Interesting.
And only recently have I realized, like, and I've gotten to a place with my followers where I'm kind of owning my own shit and owning, my body and being honest and with all aspects of my life. And in doing so, I've seen this really beautiful community come together in my followers. And, I love interacting with them. And I really love like being able to show up and like, because it's not about like, I think, and I was doing like ads and stuff for a second. So you kind of get like weird with that stuff. And like I stopped doing Instagram ads. And now it's just like a community.
That's
And
really cool.
it's really nice just to have this thing. I'm like, hey, if I tell you about something, like this isn't an ad anymore. Like it's just something that like I like want to share with you because like I'm your girlfriend and I want you to know like I like this and you'll like this because I like it.
Wow.
And in doing so, I found out that I have fertility issues. So it's been like a cool thing to have this platform to kind of, I haven't even gone into it too much yet, but just like having this avenue to like kind of connect with people and like, urge women to, learn about their bodies and things like that. And it's just been a cool place because it was such a major source of anxiety for me for so long.
Yeah.
But it's something, again, that John kind of helped me work through. And he was like, stop putting so much of your value in all of this superficial shit. And he was like, "You're the
Wow.
boss." And he was like, stop worrying about like your followers or, your ads. And he was like, you make way more money doing your real shit than you do with this stuff. And he was like, and it just kind of like, it's just like listening to your heart and your passions and all your stuff like that. And, I don't know. It's weird. It's hard. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm just gonna say
But I
it.
like that you don't pretend that you know what you're doing. Like, you're
And
very vulnerable about the fact that you're just
none of
figuring
us
it out as you go
do.
along.
No one knows. And if they act like they do, they probably are just faking it. And
Totally.
that's just all we're kind of doing is just faking it till we make it. But like, I think it's nice just to hear some people say that sometimes because I know that's what I'm doing. And it's nice just to feel I'm not so alone. Like,
Totally. I think that's what we all want, is we all want to feel less alone. And that's why I think it's really cool when we have women that are willing to come out and talk about the real stuff that's happening in their lives. Because not only does it remind you like, hey, by the way, we're all human. Despite what your following is, despite the level of success or quote unquote success you've had, we're all human. Like nobody is immune to the realities of our world. And
yeah.
it it connects us all, and it kind of fills that void of feeling like you're so alone, which is really empowering because so many of us are dealing with some really hard stuff on the side, and it feels like we kind of have to hide that in order to present this highlight reel to social media. And I respect you a lot for not doing that.
Thank you very much. Yeah. It took a second, but I think like not only do I owe it to my followers, I owe it to myself. And because it's, I don't want it to be this like fake life with everybody else. Like, because then they feel like they have to live this fake life or they feel like their life like is less than. And it's not. Like we all are like there's so much beauty in like the simplicity of everything. And I think if coronavirus can teach us anything, it's like the beauty of getting back to basics and the fact that it doesn't matter like the car we drive, the clothes we're wearing. Like right now it's like, okay, cool, like we're all in fucking sweatpants. Like, you know what I mean? And it's
Totally.
like, what matters is like the quality of our family time and our mental health and things like that. And I think that, everyone just kind of needs to take a little step back and realize, hey, we are all human. We are all going to fuck up and make mistakes. We all have, some kind of damage from our past. Like no one is free from the damage of our past. You know what I mean? It's just like
Yep.
it. And I think like if the second we realize like we're not alone and like no one's life is really as glamorous as it seems, like, and, I think that that'll help so many people like just kind of feel happier and it'll help with anxiety and depression and all of that. So
Totally.
I wish I had
And
like a magic cure, but I think honesty is just kind of the best policy.
absolutely, especially because comparison really is a thief of joy. And there's never been more time that we're comparing ourselves than social media. Like you have instant access to think that somebody else has way more than what you have. And I think that that's probably why mental health is at an all-time high. Like people everywhere are really suffering with anxiety and depression. And that's why I want to talk about it so much so that it's a little bit more normalized, that it's like, okay, we're all dealing with this, especially during this crazy pandemic time. And so I know that you've talked about just anxiety and depression in the past, and I want to know kind of what are some things you've implemented into your life that helps you stay in a positive mindset, and how do you kind of take control and keep yourself in check?
So my depression and anxiety was really bad this time like last year. And I was in a really bad living situation. I was living with like all of these girls who like were kind of totally taking advantage of me and like not paying me any bills or anything. And I just felt like really alone, like after all the shows and everything. And it was just really hard.
Yeah.
And I had started cutting and I like haven't been like too open with that just because it was like embarrassing, you know what I mean? But it was this thing where like it was the only thing that kind of like relieved this pressure that I was feeling, like this depression. It's almost like the water balloon is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and like with depression, and you just needed to like a little pinprick to kind of like relieve the pressure. And
Wow.
so for me, like cutting was, and I don't obviously condone cutting in any way. No one should be doing it at all. It was more of like a really aggressive like scratching with like sharp objects, not like so much of like, it wasn't like a thing like I wanted to kill myself. That
Yeah.
was never like what it was. It was never like I want to end my life. It was just like a thing where it was the only thing that made me feel alive in that moment. And it was like this thing
Wow.
for me that like, it was like, ow, that hurts. And it kind of got me like, brought me back down to earth. Like, hey, like you don't want to hurt. Like, it's okay. Like you want to be here. And I was like, okay, like this is bad. Like, we're not going to do that anymore. But like, it was the only thing in those bad moments that was helping me. And it's just so awful that it was, going on. And I didn't tell anybody, like nobody knew. And like, I would wear like my Apple Watch or my bracelets to like cover it up. So no one knew, except that like one of my roommates knew. And she like knew for months and didn't say anything. And then like they tried to have this like weird little intervention with me. And I was like, hey guys, like, you're not paying any of the bills. Like I've been like carrying this for months. Like I'm not working the way I had been because my anxiety is so bad. Like I can't like leave the house. And like, it's just been like really bad lately. So I was like, I need you guys to like pitch in, like
Yeah.
actually like, pay my Venmo requests, like complete those. And one of the girls was like, and I was like, yeah, like my depression's like bad. And she's like, I know you've been cutting since October. And I was like, and meanwhile, this conversation happened in July. And I was
Wow.
like, so you knew from October to July that I have been this low and been hurting myself, and you didn't do anything to like
Anything to
take care
help.
of me or help me, and like call my mom even. Like, and so I packed my car the next day, and I drove up to North Carolina, and I just never left. I went to go see John, and I stayed. And then I was like, hi, sweetie, we just met. I'm moving in. Like,
Well, because those are not real friends. You need to surround yourself around people that if they see that something's wrong, like as your friend or as somebody that's surrounding you, it's their responsibility to help you through it if you can't help yourself at that time.
and that's the thing is, it's like, I think so many times, like we, kind of take a back seat to, we don't want to like overstep with other people in their lives and whatever. And like, obviously it would have been something I would have been mortified for like her to go behind my back and tell my mom. However, like if it had been her, there's no world where I would not have called that girl's mom. Like,
Yeah.
like, hey, like I'm in over my head over here. Like, can you come like handle this? And
Like
like, not that I was like
help.
looking for like attention or anything, like whatever. And like, I thought I was like hiding it and dealing with it on my own. But to know that someone knew that I was going through that, and not like show up, like, I don't know, like that was
Painful.
just like, I was like, cool, like I don't need to be your friend. Like, you're not a
No,
good,
those are not people to surround
yeah.
yourself around.
But
And
so,
how do
so
you pull yourself out of that?
I think when you're going through a bad depression, one, you should be talking to someone. It doesn't matter like if it's, a therapist or like, a good friend or a sibling or your parent or somebody, but somebody needs to know what you're going through. And there's so much power in saying it out loud. And I dealt with this internally for so long, and I didn't like really like, I thought like, hey, your life is so good. Like, you are not depressed. Like, you don't get to be depressed. You have a good life. You have a good car. You have a good house. Like, you're on TV and doing all this fun shit. Like, you're traveling, like, and you're getting free trips. Like, I booked a modeling gig to Mexico for, like, in a suite for like a weekend. Like, just like cool stuff. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, your life is great. You're not allowed to be depressed. And so, like, I felt like I wasn't allowed to speak up about it. But the thing is like, the second that you say it out loud, it's almost like it takes away its power. Like, it's this huge thing where like it kind of I don't know how else to explain it, but it takes away the power for the depression and anxiety. Do you feel like that helps you? Like what do you do when
100%.
you're feeling that way?
And I've always thought that when you talk about something, you no longer allow it to have power over you. Because I think when you're
1000%.
trying to hide something, whether that's anxiety, depression, whatever it is, when you're putting all your energy into hiding something, that's all you're thinking about. All of your actions are surrounded by that. Your relationships, you feel like you're hiding something, but the second it's brought to light, it no longer has that hold on you. And
Mhm.
I think you saying that too, like I identify just so much with that. And I think not only saying something to someone, but making sure that they kind of follow up afterwards. Like it's not a one time, I'm struggling and that's all. It's like a, hey, I'm struggling and it would like I need help. So
And
following up
I think
after that.
the best thing is like, it's hard to like really put into words sometimes, but something simple, you can just be like, hey, I'm not okay.
Yep.
And like, once you say that out loud, like just those like 3 words or whatever, I'm not okay. Yeah, 3 words. Just something simple to let someone know what's going on. And it's going to be really shitty and it's going to feel very vulnerable. But like, I promise you, like, if you're out, someone out there who's struggling, like, talk to somebody, like, and just let them know, like, what you're feeling and what you're going through because you're important and your story's not over and there's somebody who needs you. And, like, you know what I mean? There's so much good that you can do in this world. It's just, you have to, like, believe in yourself and, like, let it happen. But it's okay to just say, like, I'm not okay and to ask for help. And it's not easy, but it's something that needs to be done. Like, you know what I mean? And it's just, it's hard. It's like, I'm feeling very fortunate to be like where I am, but it has not been an easy road. And John has been like more than fantastic. Like I would like be in the shower having a panic attack and he would just sit in the shower and like, like brush my hair or something. You know what I mean? He would just like
Wow.
hold me and like, just like hold me really tight, like a human, like weighted blanket. Like, and
Yeah,
so
just to
I've
help.
been very fortunate to have him because he has not only like been there for me, but he has fought to get me better. And he
Wow.
has fought to show me my value and my worth. So I feel very, very blessed that I found him. Well, I do therapy. Do you do that at all?
Oh my God. I am the biggest advocate for therapy now.
I
I
just think
finally got
everyone should
myself
do
into
it. Everyone.
therapy a year ago, and it's
Mhm.
like I had such a stigma around it. It's like I don't need to go talk to anybody, like whatever. I've talked to my family, I've talked to my boyfriend, like there's nothing and third party could tell me that's going to make me feel better. And I was so wrong. And it's like I think that so many people that are struggling should try it. You know, maybe it's not for everybody, but the experience that I've had with therapy has been life changing. And it sounds like that's been a huge part of your journey as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think like it's nice to have someone, you know, yes, they're paid to listen to you, but like also they know what they're doing, they know what they're talking about. And so I have this app called BetterHelp. Have you heard of that?
Yes, I have.
So I love it because I'm always like on the go and like bouncing around. I'm like never like in one place for too long. I'm
Yeah.
like a gypsy. But so it's cool because the BetterHelp is like an app on your phone and it's one, it's incredibly affordable. But two, like obviously like I can take it with me anywhere. So if I'm in Massachusetts, Florida, North Carolina, wherever the hell I am, like that way it's not like a, oh, I have no excuse. Like, you know, like I
Not
can't
to
do it
show
today.
up.
Like I, you know, whatever. It's like I have no excuse like why I can't show up for that.
Wow. And is it
And
like a
so,
FaceTime?
yeah, you can FaceTime or just do a phone call.
Wow.
And like you can
That's
like
cool.
message them, be like, hey, like, you know, this is something, like, you know what I mean? Like little things like here and there or whatever. But it's just it's cool to have that. I think it's just a really cool option, especially like it's not easy to like especially when you have anxiety and where you like are like like some days like for me, I was just proud of myself for brushing my teeth, you know? And it's like, cool, like I didn't go to work today, but like I fed myself. So like that's a like
It's a win.
good job, Caroline. Like you fed yourself today. Like, you know, basic human little things, which feels insane, but like that's like the reality of the matter sometimes.
Yeah.
So having it be on my phone has been awesome because in the days where like I don't want to get up and go anywhere, I don't have to get out of my bed to talk to this bitch, you know? Like I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, it's me, I'm in bed.
Wow.
Like, and when I had coronavirus, I was still doing my things, and it was nice because I'm like, hey, girl, like I have coronavirus, and it was nice that I didn't have to skip my appointments and whatever, and that I could talk to her from quarantine.
That's really awesome. That's a great resource. I didn't realize how accessible it was. And I think that's good for a lot of people, not only the fact that like now in the 21st century, everything is on our phone, but I think it's cool that you really don't have an excuse then. It's so easy to excuse your mental health and say
Yeah.
like, oh, I'll do it later.
Have you been doing your therapy from Arizona, or like how did you like get a new different therapist or whatever?
So I haven't yet. And my girl, her and I have honestly been emailing back and forth with it. And I felt like when I started therapy, I was in such a low place that I felt like all I could think about is how anxious I was. Like everything was making me anxious. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't focus. And I was
Where-
kind of in a similar position to you that it was like, I have everything I wanted. Like I have no reason to be anxious. I have no reason to be feeling the way I'm feeling. And I put it off for so long. And I think finally talking to somebody and dealing with the stuff that was actually on my mind was so freeing that I feel like this weight was lifted off of me that now like I see clearly. Whereas before everything was a blur.
Right.
So I'm more than anything doing checkups now. And especially during this time, like I need to figure out if we do leave New York, what does that look like when it comes to therapy? But I do think that that is hands down the best thing I've done for my mental health. And I also had to start adopting some really new strict routines in my day to kind of keep myself in
Yes.
check. Because if I don't, I am a person that needs a routine. If I don't have that, and if I just let myself think that I have it under control without taking tangible steps, that's where I get low.
That is such a great point. Also, is routines. I feel like for me, especially when like my schedule is so like it's very flexible, it's very all over the place. Like no day looks quite exactly the same.
Yeah.
And again, there's where John is like comes into play. He's the king of routines, and he's like obsessed with like, and having a dog is one of the best things for a routine, because especially when you're anxious and depressed, like you have to get up and walk the dog or it's going to shit in the house. Like
Yep.
you have to take the dog outside, and it's good because it gets you moving a little bit. You have to walk the dog, you have to feed the dog. You know what I mean? And it's like
Yeah.
that little person to like that's relying on you. And so that's been very helpful for me. But yeah, the routine is huge. What do you think are some of the like the triggers for you when you have like when it flares up for you?
I think my biggest thing, I have such an issue when it comes down to control that like I have for so long lived in this false world that I think that I have the power to control what happens and what will be happening to me. I can control my schedule. I can control work. I can control my relationship. I can control basically everything. And it got to a point that I had to realize like I'm virtually in control of absolutely nothing in my life. And I really had to figure out how to rely so much more on my faith than I ever have.
That was
Because
my next point. Fuck yes, ma'am. Fuck yeah.
faith is like, I was raised in a Christian household. I've always had access to knowing what this faith was, but I don't think I ever experienced it or sought it out as an adult. And I finally, through therapy, was realizing like, okay, this control aspect that I'm so obsessive over is because I don't truly have faith. I can't trust that everything's going to be okay. And now that I have really made faith at a center of who I am, I feel very much at ease with whatever happens, that I can be adaptable for the first time in a long time.
Well, it's like look back on anything that you've gone through, you know what I mean? So like for example, let's go way back for me, okay? My first boyfriend. Him and I dated for 7 years. He was my high school sweetheart for
Wow.
a little bit afterwards. And when him and I broke up, I was like, oh my God, like, I don't even know what my life is. Like, and you're just like crying and you're like a mess and you're whatever. But like, you get over it. And then you date and then you meet someone else and they're better than that last person.
Yeah.
And then, then you guys break up again and then you meet someone else. And guess what? They're better than that last person. Or it's like you lose your job and then you get another one. And it's like, we always like, we think in the moment, like, oh my God, like, this is the worst thing. And I want to control it. And you want it to be this whatever, you want to control it to be something and whatever you in your brain you think. But like, there's some quote that I've read recently. It was like, who do you think you are that you think your plan is better than God's plan for you?
Oh, I love that.
And it's just like, you know what? who the fuck am I to question the big guy?
Right.
And it's just so cool to like when you kind of like have faith and just kind of like let go and let God. I know it's like such like a cheesy, overused like line, but it's if you actually think about it, like give it, and like maybe you don't believe in God, like maybe whatever, but there's this whole like universe and like source energy, and like there's something there that like you know what I mean. Like there's something there, whether you believe in God or whether it's the universe or whatever the hell you want to believe in, but there is something bigger than us that is out there that like you just have to like relax and like go with the flow because it's like it's such a thing. Like, have you read The Universe Has Your Back?
No. What it
Oh my God, you have to read this book. It's so good. I actually listened to it on audiobooks because
Okay.
it's just I'm lazy and that's the only way I can actually get through the material of things these days. And like, I can't like focus otherwise, but it's such a wonderful book and just like letting go and trusting the universe and knowing that like it's out of our control, and it's just really such a beautiful like idea.
Okay,
And I
I
don't
need to
know,
read
I
that.
highly recommend it, so people should listen to it.
Now, I do have one question for you that I'm curious about. Do you think, looking back on where you're at now, knowing all the obstacles you've really overcome over the last few years, do you think that deciding to go on television blessed you or hurt you more?
It for sure blessed me, because I got so many wonderful, genuine, real friendships from the show. And not only that, I was gifted with this really cool community of women and like a platform that I've been given. And it's a much smaller platform than other women on the show. And like, I think I felt like a loser. You know what I mean? So like my friends from the show have like 700,000 followers, 800,000 followers, a million followers, whatever. And I've got like, 140, whatever. And I like, it was funny. So I was like, I'm a loser. Like no one cares about me. And it's like, no, like 140,000 people are
Have
here to like follow you and, listen to what you say. I mean, obviously my engagement's not 140, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But, and for me, the thing is like the second I started looking at my glass half full instead of half empty, like, you know what? Yes, there was anxiety that came from the show. Yes, there were times when I felt low and where I felt less than. But however, again, it all comes down to our mentality. It's like the second I realized, I've been given this gift of a platform where I'm able to reach, a good amount of women and connect with them and share like, my body positivity message, my fertility journey, like, all the little things that like I go through and that, that's been, I feel like my, kind of like my calling and like the reason God put me on this earth. And like, I'm an open book and I will tell you anything. I'll tell you all about my life. Like if you ask, like, I won't hide anything. I'm very much like,
you're very
I'm
open, and I
a
love
sharer.
that. I love it.
But that's the thing though, is like, I think that is like my purpose here in this planet. Like, you know what I mean? In this life that I've been given is to share and connect and to help other people not feel so alone. And so it's like, maybe, that's like what was part of my journey and my gift, from God was that to help me reach that point. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Absolutely.
That's like what I think. And like, my sister's like she's like, oh, it's your zone of genius. And I'm like, all right, like, sure. She uses that all the time. It's one of her like coaching words, zone of genius. And I think we all have our little gifts that we have to tie into. And I think we get so caught up in, worrying about the big fancy picture of things. But when you're struggling with depression and anxiety or whatever, it's like, stop being so selfish and worrying about you. Like, and the best thing that you can do to make yourself feel better is always to like show up for other people or give to someone in need, because there's always somebody who has it worse than you, and show up for that person. And even if it's just one person, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
And
love that perspective.
that's just like a huge thing that I think, like, I follow this kind of entrepreneur, inspirational, like business coach person called Ed Milet. Have you ever heard of him?
Oh my God, I love Ed Milet.
I love Ed Milet.
He is amazing.
Oh my God, like I'm like, can you be my best friend? Like, oh my God, he messaged me back on Instagram once. I was listening to his podcast and he like sent me a voice memo and I was like, one, this is so thoughtful and so like, I just felt so seen by him. You know what I mean? He didn't
That's
owe me
really
anything.
cool.
And I was like, props to you, Ed, for like just interacting with your audience. Like, yes, sir. but he was talking about how when he has all his like professional athlete like clients come in, he's like, all right, first things first, like what charity are you working with? And they're like, what? I'm not working with a charity. And he's like, well, you're going to start one. And he's like, the key to happiness, so much of it is in helping others and showing up for other people other than yourself.
That's
and like
powerful.
it's so true. So there's some great podcasts. So Ed Milet and Skinny Confidential, like they've done two
Love.
podcasts together,
Love
and both
those.
are dynamite. So everyone listening should go listen to those because they're fantastic. But it just kind of goes back to like, you think you need all this stuff to be happy, and it really just comes back to like the basics, and marry your high school sweetheart if that's what you want to do, and just it's okay to like not have to be the biggest and the best and the baddest at everything. You can just
be you.
happy.
Just be you and be happy.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know, it's
love
wild.
that. And when I started this more than to begin with, it was more than measurements because it was narrow-minded of me at the time thinking like, okay, I am so much more than measurements at this time because that's modeling. That's my body image. That's all I was focused on. And the more I started thinking about it, I realized every single person is more than something. And everyone that I've talked to has one label that specifically comes to mind when I ask, how do you label yourself? So that's what I want to ask you is if I were to say you are more than, what is that label that comes to your mind?
Ooh.
I know it's a tough question.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think more than measurements is a great one. I can relate to that as well.
Women in particular, because that's who we're talking to, are so multifaceted that a lot of the times, from what I'm realizing, is the label that first comes to your mind is something that it's been identified as an insecurity or it's been a shield of something. And I think it's really cool that when you really stop to think about it, the amount of labels that make up who Caroline is are pretty powerful titles that you don't take lightly. Like not only are you an influencer, are you a Miss Mass? Are you a real estate agent? Are you an interior designer? Are you all these things that like encompass how powerful and incredible you are? So I think it's really important that like everybody does that in their own lives, but also that you see that like your label is pretty powerful.
And I think it's cool because I think so many, and I think like something like this podcast, and I think like kind of the movement that's happening right now. And, we went for the Sports Illustrated swimsuit. And I think that was so powerful, especially because like the message that they have there with that, is just like, it's just really celebrating and embracing every woman and every body.
Yeah.
And I think that, we are so much more than our physical appearance.
Yeah.
And I think like, we kind of get caught up in it because it's like fun to, do your hair and like, do your Botox. Like, don't get me wrong. I miss Botox for sure here in quarantine, but like we are so much more than our physical appearance, and that shouldn't be where all of our value is held because, I'm funny, I'm smart, I'm sarcastic, and, I'm great at marketing and branding and real estate and like all these things. And I'm a great, girlfriend, I'm a great sister and a great daughter. Like we have all these things that we are so much more like than like, these little things. And I think it's such a beautiful name. When you first came out with it, I was like, yes, ma'am. I was so proud. I was like, that's such a good name. Like it's hard to come up with a name, and that's a really good one.
Thank you.
And I think the message behind it is so strong, and I'm really proud of you because I love the narrative that we're, continuing to push here. And I think it's important because if we don't do this now, if we don't realize that we are more than, our daughters are going to have to struggle. Our granddaughters are going to have to struggle. Like we have to fix this problem now so we know that we are enough. Otherwise, it's going to be this never-ending issue for women for the rest of time.
Wow.
And I just, you know what I mean? Like it's our obligation to the future females of the world that we just step up and make shit happen, because otherwise it's never going to end. So,
amen. That was a mic drop moment, I think.
Boom.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I think that your story and your openness and your vulnerability is so powerful. And I know that I learn more about you every single time we talk. And I just appreciate you. I appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate what you're doing in the world because you're making moves all the time. And I'm really proud to know you.
Dude, I love you so much. And I feel so grateful that I, got to know you and that the universe put you in my path, because you are such an amazing friend and I look up to you so much. And I'm very inspired by the work that you do. And also, like, I think you and your man are relationship goals. Like, I just love you both. Like, you're both like such good solid humans.
Thank
So,
you. Oh
I'm
God,
just
I love
thank
you.
you for having me. And I'm just like, I'm so pumped to be here. And sorry, I ramble a lot, but,
No.
but it's fun. It's really fun to be here. So
Thank you. I love you.
girl.
So there you have it. I hope you got just as much out of this episode as I did. Please take a second to rate and review the podcast. It helps us so much. And remember, you are more than whatever label's been placed upon you. We'll see you next week.